Hello everyone, this week we are going to be learning about the partition of India and how that affected the people of India and Pakistan. So if you look at this map, the darker the green, the more Muslims that live in that region. So when the British and the representatives from the Muslim League and the representatives from the Indian National Congress were sitting down and determining how India should look after they gained their independence, the British were really trying to figure out where most of the Muslims lived and try to give them their own country. So if you notice, the darker the green over here, so there's a larger Muslim population over here, and there's also a larger Muslim population right here. And then if you look at the red map, the redder the region, the more Hindus that live in that area. So you notice here that the majority of India had a very large Hindu population. And then over here, it's really light because remember, that's where most of the Muslims were, and most of the Muslims were over here. So when the British do draw the lines over here, this becomes Pakistan and this becomes East Pakistan for a while. And that's how they decided to draw the borders. You can see on this map. So I want you to use these maps to answer the questions. And then on the second page here where you see this map, there's two links. This first one is for a video. This is a video clip from the Gandhi movie that we were going to watch together as a class. And I highly recommend that you watch it because it will show you what happens as soon as they create Pakistan and the result of this mass migration. So as soon as Pakistan is created, there's a huge migration. And if you are Hindu and you're living over here in what becomes Pakistan, you're trying to get into India. And if you're Muslim and you are living in India, you're trying to get over to Pakistan. And on the routes, as people are migrating to their respective country, there's a lot of violence and killing. And by the time the dust settles and everything is all done with the migration, at least 1 million people are killed. In this article, I would like you to read because it will help you with this last question. What have been the long-term effects of the partition on the relationship between Pakistan and India? The relationship between Pakistan and India today is still pretty strained because of this region right here of Kashmir. They both claim that it's an independent region, but they also both claim parts of it. So this is what you would call a disputed territory. And if you look at it on a map, even today, the boundaries around it are like dashed lines instead of being solid lines, and that usually indicates that that region is disputed, meaning more than one country argue that it's theirs. So if you click on this, it will bring you to an article. You don't have to read the whole thing. I'm going to read part of it to you. So the first part is reasons for partition. So why are we dividing India to begin with? So you can read that if you're still confused as to why that's happening. The second part is talking about the transfer of power from the British to the Indians. And then this one talks about the tensions in India. So many have wondered why the British and Indian leaders did not delay until a better deal over borders could have been agreed. One explanation is that in the months and years immediately following World War II, leaders on all sides were losing control and were keen to strike a deal before the country descended into chaos. Immediately before World War II, India was ravaged by the impact of the Great Depression, bringing mass unemployment. This created tremendous tensions exacerbated during the war by inflation and food grain shortages. Rationing was introduced in Indian cities, and in Bengal, a major famine developed in 1942. So before the war, India's not doing very well, just like the rest of the world. There was a global depression. And then immediately after World War II, there's just unrest. And the British they kind of want to just wipe their hands of India and be done with it. So should they have waited a little bit longer? Maybe. But they made the decision to leave by 1947, and that's what they did. The resulting discontent was expressed in widespread violence, accompanying the Congress's party, the Quit India Campaign of 1942, a violence only contained by the deployment of 55 army battalions. With all the hostilities and the battalions at the disposal of the government of India were rapidly diminished. At the same time, the infrastructure of the Congress Party, whose entire leadership was imprisoned due to the opposition to the war, had been dismantled. So the Congress Party, that's the Indian National Congress, that's what Gandhi was the leader of, and at this point he had been thrown in jail. The Muslim League, which cooperated with the British, had rapidly increased its membership, yet still had very limited grassroots level organization. This was dramatically revealed on the 16th of August, 1946, when Jinnah called for a direct action day by followers of the League in support of the demand for Pakistan. The day had dissolved into random violence and civil disruption across North India, with thousands of lives lost. This was interpreted by the British as evidence of the irreconcilable differences between the Hindus and the Muslims. In reality, the riots were evidence as much of the simple lack of military and political control as they were of social discord. So the British used events like that to kind of highlight the need to have two different countries, claiming that the Hindus and the Muslims could never live peacefully together. And that was a huge argument for Gandhi. Gandhi felt that if the British just left, the Indian people could figure it out for themselves. And he was really disappointed when, at the end of the day, two different countries were created, because he really felt that India would be able to be a united country and be able to live together. Okay. Hopes for Pakistan, this talks more about how different groups of people felt about potentially splitting up the country. And then this post-partition and conflict over Kashmir. So the death of Muhammad Ali Jinnah in 1948, the conflict with India over the princely state of Kashmir, which both countries claimed at independence, as well as ethnic and religious differences within Pakistan itself, all combined to stymie early attempts to agree on a constitution and effectively functioning civil administration. So they both India and Pakistan claim that Kashmir is part of their country. So they gain independence in 1947. One of the main people who fought for Pakistan is dead a year later. And so that creates it makes it very difficult for India and Pakistan to then form some kind of positive relationship. The failure paved way for a military takeover of the government in 1958 and later on to civil war in 1971. This saw the division of the country and the creation of a separate state of Bangladesh. Ever since then, military rule has been more often than not the order of the day in both countries. So Bangladesh takes the place of Eastern Pakistan. So if you look at this map, going back to this, this is what was called West Pakistan. This was East Pakistan. By 1970, this is Pakistan, and this is Bangladesh. At independence, in India and in Pakistan, civil unrest as well as ethnic and religious discord threatened the stability of the new country. However, the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi on the 30th of January 1948 by a Hindu fanatic strengthened the hand of secularists within the government. Indian politicians ratified a constitution which led to the first democratic elections in 1951. This made India the world's largest democracy and consolidated governmental authority over the entire subcontinent. However, major tensions have persisted among both Muslim and Sikh communities, which suffered most from the violence and land loss resulting from partition. These tensions erupted most seriously in the 1980s in a violent campaign for the creation of a separate Sikh state, which led ultimately to the assassination of Indira Gandhi. Renewed victimization of Muslims has also occurred, notably with the destruction of a Muslim shrine in Adhohaya in 1992 and anti-Muslim riots in Gurata in 2004. With such notable exceptions, however, India has maintained a remarkable level of cohesion since independence, especially if one considers that it is a country nearly the size of Europe. So there are still conflicts between these two countries. They still have disputes over Kashmir. For both India and Pakistan, the most singular conflict unresolved since partition has concerned the former princely state of Kashmir, whose fate was left undetermined at the time the British left. Lying as it did on the border, Kashmir was claimed by both countries, which have been to war over this region on numerous occasions. So using that information and these maps, please answer those questions.